hyperinflation is a scenario when inflation rate is more than 50%. Okay. Sometimes they will define it, it is a scenario when there is a very high inflation. I mean, at just 50%, there is no absolute number, but usually when it increases at a rate higher than 50%, it is called hyperinflation. Okay. Now, see, in India, traditionally, inflation has been because of two factors, two major factors which brings inflation in our country. One is tomato, that is food. Like food products have inflation. Monsoon nahi aaya. When there is bad monsoon, there would be a lot of inflation. When there is monsoon, those tomato producers are forced to sell their tomatoes, or rather throw their tomatoes, okay, in the dump yard, because they even do not get enough money that cover their production cost. Okay, and then another factor that brings a lot of inflation is fuel cost. Petrol, diesel prices, they keep on increasing. Okay, and there is a lot of ho halla about that. But these two things as such do not represent the overall economic activity. Like there is one sense that we also derive from inflation is that either probably the products are now in a scarcity. Like in case of tomato, we always felt that tomato is no more available, that's why it is become costly. Okay, so when because of the food and fuel prices inflation become high, there is a general tendency that now in economy the products are no more available. But probably it's only these two category of products which are not available, because of which there is high inflation. Okay, so overall जो economic activity को ये misrepresent करते हैं, there is misrepresentation of economic activity. So that's why ये idea came कि we should make a basket which does not have these food and fuel products. Okay, so we should also track inflation without these two items which have very high fluctuation. Sometimes it will be very high, sometimes it will be very low as well, because when there is good monsoon, the prices would go down as well. Okay, so since these two items have very high fluctuation, we should have a inflation basket without these two category of items as well. That basket is called core inflation basket, and based on these basket, the inflation is called core inflation. Okay, the original basket, we need to give some name to that as well, which had all the produce, okay, all the item. That basket is now known as headline basket. Okay, and that inflation is called headline inflation. Okay, so headline inflation is normal inflation. All the inflation that we are talking, it takes into consideration all the items that represent the consumption of people. When we remove the food and beverages and fuel and light, okay, this is known as core inflation basket, and the inflation is called core inflation. Okay, this people were calculating very easily, अच्छा चल रहा था. But then it was seen that even this basket, this core inflation is supposed to be normally, now what is left in that basket? Those goods which are not fluctuating much, like for example your toothpaste, it does not become all of a sudden very costly, and neither it happens that its prices will go down suddenly. All the manufacturing items that we get, their prices tends to be very stable. Okay, even like milk produce, although it's a food item, but this is one rare item in which India is self-sustained now. India has a lot of milk production and its prices don't go up and down. Okay, but it was seen that even this core inflation is showing a lot of fluctuation as compared to other economies. Then economic survey did some research and it found that, see, you have removed this fuel and light component from here, and in this you did not remove those fuel which is used in transporting of vehicle. So a lot of fuel is consumed by vehicles. Transport sector is one of the largest consumer of vehicles, but you have put all the vehicles into transport category. Here you are primarily keeping those which are cooking fuel and the fuel like kerosene oil which is used for lighting. Now since the economic growth, now earlier when this was core inflation was earlier made, there was a lot of consumption of kerosene oil in our economy, but now kerosene oil is not being consumed. Okay, so probably that's why now you are no more removing the actual fuel which is consumed in the economy. So the economic survey suggested that we should make something called refined core inflation, where we shall remove petrol and diesel that are used in vehicle from the core inflation basket. Then we shall come to the refined core inflation. This is one thing which is yet not asked in the exam. Core inflation they have already asked. So next item that is going to be asked is refined core inflation, although it had come in the economic survey of probably 2021. So there is quite some time. They have not asked 1, 2, 3 either. So you never know. UPSC is a bit unpredictable. See, there was this basket earlier we were having. The inflation that we calculated based on this basket is known as headline inflation. Okay. Then we removed from here the food and fuel. Now this basket is known as core inflation. Core inflation. Then someone came with an argument that see the fuel that we are removing actually is not the complete removal of fuel. There is a lot of fuel being used in transport sector. So now from this you are removing fuel used in vehicles. This is now further refinement of that concept of core inflation. Okay, that's why the name refined core inflation. Okay, so the overall concept is the same, that of core inflation, that the core item we should be tracking the inflation, not those items which are making it very volatile. Okay, so we have further done the refinement of our basket. That's why the name refined core inflation. You must also understand the argument behind making this core inflation basket. We are removing those items which have high volatility. Okay? These are the items which have high volatility in price.